Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Ladies and gentlemen, we are back. We have returned to our podcast destination. That is John L., your friendly neighborhood moviegoer, with a review for you about a movie that I saw a trailer for, I'd say about 2 months ago. And it interested me, one, because it was a foreign film. It had made its rounds in the festival circuit, as they say, the Cannes, Toronto International Film Festival, things of that nature. The film I'm talking about today is Close. It is a French film, I believe, and it is distributed by A24. So I said to myself, A24 in the year of 2022 hasn't missed and put out material that is very thought-provoking, intriguing, and entertaining. So I said to myself, okay, this trailer doesn't look bad. It seems to be a tale about friendship in the preteen years between two young men. And you also saw the parents involved in the trailer. So then I went ahead and read the synopsis on this, and so I'll forward this to you guys as well. The synopsis reads, Leo and Remi are two 13-year-old best friends whose seemingly unbreakable bond is suddenly tragically torn apart. The film, as I stated before, is winner of the Grand Jury Prize at the Cannes Film Festival. Lukas Dhont, who is the director of the film, is his second film, is an emotionally transformative and unforgettable portrait of the intersection of friendship and love, identity and independence, and heartbreak and healing. So the runtime on the movie is 1 hour and 45 minutes. The movie was put out on limited release on December 2nd, 2022. I didn't get to see it until last Thursday, which was February 2nd. I went to my local AMC to watch the film and obviously get a better understanding of what this was about. So I'll say this about the film to get started. I think that the film itself, from a strictly, how do I say this, a professional standpoint, how the film was made, I think the film was beautifully shot. I think that the film was well written as well, even though it's a French film and you're reading everything via you're reading everything via the subtitles, you still get the sense and the emotional tie-ins to what's going on in the film. Much to the theme of the synopsis about the film being emotionally transformative. That's an interesting phrase to use, right? Because as you watch the film, you do see the relationship between the two young boys. And you see the innocence in both young boys and how they behaved around each other and around other people that knew them before you see them in a different setting. They were very affectionate with one another, close with one another. Each other's parents knew each other. Their own individual families worked on their own individual farms. And that's how they sustained and took care of themselves. But once they left the environment of their home spaces and made it to what seemed to be a new school for them, is when things started to change in their friendship. Because as we know, kids of that age range, I would say anywhere between, preteen years, 11, 12, and then into the teen years, they can be pretty piss poor human beings. They can say very hurtful and mean things. They can insinuate things or ask inappropriate questions without necessarily knowing that questions are inappropriate. So depicted in the film, through their experiences in this new school, is how their relationship is viewed amongst all these new friends / students that they've been exposed to, due to the way that they behaved around each other or were used to behaving around each other. I felt already while watching the film that I knew where the film was going to go. And the trailer did infer, or I inferred from the trailer, should I say, that you knew their friendship was going to take a turn for the worse. You just didn't necessarily know how. So essentially, there was a break in communication. One of the young men's behavior changed towards the other. Typical things that do happen with kids. The only thing that, I don't know, it left me thinking for a bit, because me, myself, individually, I have been around children from of all ages my entire life. I have 11 nieces and nephews, and they all span from Junie baby's 2, so they span from the age of 2, and my oldest niece is about to be 20 in about a couple of days. And to understand how it is that that kids of that age range interact, I understand it very well. Obviously, I was once there myself, many eons ago, and I've seen my nieces and nephews go through their ups and downs with their friends and associates, so on and so forth and stuff. So to relate it to the movie that I was watching, I was like, okay, this is pretty typical kid stuff. Stuff like this happens, right? And I think once I saw that the movie was in the vein of that, right? Verisimilitude, just the realism of what happens with kids in that age range, I kind of figured we might get a story of how things like this happen between kids, but then we'll see how they can rebuild the relationship, or you might go forward a couple of years, whatever creative lens they want to use. They didn't do any of that. What we got here in this story was something that was a little bit, not a little bit, it was darker. It was a darker result. And I came into this movie with no expectations. I liked the movie. Like I said, I thought the movie was beautifully shot. I thought that the sound design was incredible. The colors jumped off the screen. The performances by the young kids and the adults across the board were amazing. Like I said, well written. But what left me kind of feeling strange was the twist in the movie. Not to say that things like that don't happen. It was a dark twist. I don't necessarily want to talk about it verbatim because I'm even uncomfortable speaking about that in general, even when it happens with adults. And when the twist happened, I said to myself, okay, so now this just turned from a film about miscommunication between young kids and a broken bond where there was so much love, trust, and admiration between the two, into a story about grief and how people deal with it. In this case, young kids of that age range, and obviously the adults around them. And I said to myself, man, okay, I can understand this because, like I said, this type of thing can happen, or it has happened, as a matter of fact. And to be it that dark and associated with kids of that age range, you gotta toe a fine line. And I think they did that well. I think the presentation of how one of the young men was dealing with grief, how it evolved, behavior from day to day, how it changed, how it didn't change, how people continued to live life, the new way of operation of the people who were involved in this twist of events. It left me a little, not even worse for wear. I just felt like by the end of the movie, I felt a little confused. Just due to the fact that, I guess from the artist's perspective, from the director's perspective, the ending, it was left up to your interpretation. It was left up to the audience member's interpretation. There was no, there was a finality to it, but yet there was still a level of ambiguity that was left with how things were being dealt with from an emotional standpoint. And that is what I was left with in this film. I was reading other reviews about the film, right? And I read certain things that said that audience members were emotionally manipulated due to how things turned out in the movie, especially the use and the exploitation of children. And it's, to me, and I understand the sacredness of kids and the innocence and everything else in between, but if you can't deal with the fact that things like this do happen in real life, which is why I use the word verisimilitude a lot, then you're avoiding stuff. You're evading certain situations. Is it right or wrong? Not for me to say, but the fact of the matter is that you're avoiding to deal with stuff. And that's not necessarily the best thing to do. In tow, when it comes to things like grief and understanding your emotions and why you're acting out in a certain way or feeling a certain way due to a certain event or trauma. And I think this film helped me understand more, even as an adult, as to why certain things happen. Or should I say, why people react certain ways when events of grief and trauma occur. It was, like I said before, that emotional ambiguity that the film leaves you with. And it's up to you to basically decide, well, wait a minute. Is this the cause of this? Should he fault himself for what happened? And the fault of the he I'm talking about is one of the young men. It wasn't even the dark twist. Now it's like the fallout. Like, does he blame himself for the fallout? Does he blame himself for the twist? I thought he was more or less not necessarily exonerated of it, but, you know, he was made to feel like it wasn't his fault. But then even more happens after that. And it's like, well, the tie to said trauma is no longer there for him to learn from, grow past, and evolve from it. Right? Yeah, I thought that was just strange in that particular, from my perspective. But, you know, art is art. It's relative and it's subjective. Like I said, I like the film. Is it a broad recommendation for everyone to watch? I think it'll make a lot of people uncomfortable, to be honest. Yet another one of those films. I seem to always land on these. And not because there's like horrific events. Well, horrific in the sense of I'll align that with like horror or like a war movie or something like that. Nothing like that happens, right? No gore and things of that nature. But there is trauma. There is a tragedy that happens during this movie. And it just makes you think. And how it affects children of that age range, especially for a person like myself, who is surrounded by kids of different age ranges and people who have been that age range that's depicted in this film. It's just a tough thing to deal with. But it's a real thing to deal with. And sometimes you're not going to have the answers or know how to deal with something of this magnitude. And I think the film shows you that. It makes you feel that. And that feeling is never comfortable. And I think that with all that being said, and all the different reviews that I read, I'll differ in opinion. I'll disagree that the ending was manipulative. I didn't think that at all. It's a very touching and moving story. But yet again, I wouldn't necessarily recommend it across the board. To give you guys the wrap on this, let's talk about how this movie was viewed from the critic standpoint and from the audience standpoint. This movie is certified fresh, 89 total reviews from critics at a 92%. And the audience score, with 100 plus verified ratings, is at a 79%. So we can see that the critics had more of a liking to this film and its messaging than us as the general viewing public did. So that's my take on this movie here. Close. French film distributed by A24. If you're interested in watching a movie like this is probably showing in your art house type cinemas. Even though I watched it at my local AMC, the local AMC that I go to does show a lot of art house type films and things of that nature. So I don't always have to go all the way downtown into Soho to watch indie films or art house type films and stuff like that. So look for it if you're interested. Close is the name of the movie. The director of the film is Lukas Dhont. And yeah, very liked film, won an award at the Cannes Film Festival. So it is a very highly touted film. Programming note, folks. Next week, which is the week of, I'll go by Monday, the 13th, there might be very light content. I didn't book any movies to watch this week. Like, my slate is completely clean. I went through my A-List app. I went through my Alamo Drafthouse app. I went through my Angelica Film Center app. And even through the IFC app. I didn't find anything or watch any trailers that piqued my interest that will be coming out this week. So I've decided to do something a little different. So depending on the time I have this week between work and the gym going, as you know, I always mention it to you guys, and whatever else I can get planned through the week, I might do a little something different. Might review a series and 2 streaming movies that piqued my interest over the last couple of weeks. So I'm not used to doing streaming films, but I'll take a shot at it. So that's the programming note. As always, folks, thank you very much for listening to the pod. This has been John L., your friendly neighborhood moviegoer, signing off. Until next time, take care of yourselves, be well, and stay healthy.